67. The Ugliest Man. And again did Zarathustra's feet run through mountains and forests, and his eyes sought and sought, but nowhere was he to be seen whom they wanted to see, the sorely distressed sufferer and crier. On the whole way, however, he rejoiced in his heart, and was full of gratitude. "What good things," said he, "hath this day given me, as amends for its bad beginning? What strange interlocutors have I found? At their words will I now chew a long while, as at good corn. Small shall my teeth grind and crush them, until they flow like milk into my soul."
Zarathustra still hasn't found what he's looking for, the higher man who emitted the cry of distress. But he's beginning to realize that he did find what he was hoping for in the opening chapter of this part. Interesting humans who present challenges to his wisdom.
When, however, the path again curved round a rock, all at once the landscape changed, and Zarathustra entered into a realm of death. Here bristled aloft black and red cliffs, without any grass, tree, or bird's voice, for it was a valley which all animals avoided, even the beasts of prey, except that a species of ugly, thick green serpent came here to die when they became old. Therefore the shepherds called this valley serpent-death.
Zarathustra finds himself in a place reminiscent of what the Bible calls the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Colloquially, it is known as serpent-death, and since serpent, in this book, is a metaphor for wisdom, it makes it a place where wisdom goes to die.
Zarathustra, however, became absorbed in dark recollections, for it seemed to him as if he had once before stood in this valley. And much heaviness settled on his mind, so that he walked slowly and always more slowly, and at last stood still. Then, however, when he opened his eyes, he saw something sitting by the wayside, shaped like a man, and hardly like a man, something nondescript. And all at once there came over Zarathustra a great shame, because he had gazed on such a thing. Blushing up to the very roots of his white hair, he turned aside his glance, and raised his foot that he might leave this ill-starred place.
Zarathustra feels like he was in this place before. The implication surely is that he was spiritually in such a place, but managed to find the ideas that got him out of it. He then sees a man-like creature sitting there, and feels great shame. The shame reveals that he sees something of himself in this creature.
Then, however, became the dead wilderness vocal, for from the ground a noise welled up, gurgling and rattling, as water gurgleth and rattleth at night through stopped-up water-pipes. And at last it turned into human voice and human speech. It sounded thus: "Zarathustra, Zarathustra, read my riddle. Say, say, what is the revenge on the witness? I entice thee back. Here is smooth ice. See to it that thy pride doth not here break its legs. Thou thinkest thyself wise, thou proud Zarathustra. Read then the riddle, thou hard nut-cracker, the riddle that I am. Say then, who am I?"
Zarathustra wants nothing to do with this creature, but the latter tempts his wisdom with a riddle, asking him if he can guess who he is. He gives him one hint, that it has something to do with taking revenge on a witness.
When, however, Zarathustra had heard these words, what think ye then took place in his soul? Pity overcame him, and he sank down all at once like an oak that hath long withstood many tree-fellers, heavily, suddenly, to the terror even of those who meant to fell it. But immediately he got up again from the ground, and his countenance became stern.
This reminds us that Zarathustra, with all his talk about pity being a bad thing, is not devoid of pity. On the contrary, he is full of pity for the suffering of his fellow men, so much so that it can cause him to collapse. Fellow suffering, he once said, is the deepest abyss. His warning is not to fall into this abyss, not to succumb to your pity. And, indeed, he manages to overcome it and get back to his feet.
"I know thee well," said he with a brazen voice. "Thou art the murderer of God. Let me go. Thou couldst not endure him who beheld thee. Whoever beheld thee, through and through, thou ugliest man, thou tookest revenge on this witness."
Zarathustra solves the riddle. The witness was God, and the fallen creature is the man who killed him. Nietzsche, of course, does not believe that there was one man who killed God. He sees it as something that humanity did collectively. The ugliest man, then, is a manifestation of this side of humanity, this shameful side that killed God. The shame he feels in himself is that he knows that he, too, took part in this slaying. But we also know that he believes that he is not the same as this creature. What sets them apart?
Thus spake Zarathustra, and was about to go. But the nondescript grasped at a corner of his garment, and began anew to gurgle and seek for words. "Stay," said he at last. "Stay, do not pass by. I have divined what axe it was that struck thee to the ground. Hail to thee, O Zarathustra, that thou art again upon thy feet. Thou hast divined, I know it well, how the man feeleth who killed him, the murderer of God. Stay, sit down here beside me. It is not to no purpose."
The ugliest man is the manifestation of the feeling of humanity after it killed God. He is not happy, and wants to talk to Zarathustra about it.
"To whom would I go but unto thee? Stay, sit down. Do not, however, look at me. Honour thus mine ugliness. They persecute me. Now art thou my last refuge, not with their hatred, not with their bailiffs. Oh, such persecution would I mock at, and be proud and cheerful. Hath not all success hitherto been with the well-persecuted ones? And he who persecuteth well learneth readily to be obsequent, when once he is put behind. But it is their pity."
Here is another one who escaped society to go find Zarathustra. He feels persecuted, but it's not that they persecute him for his apostasy. He would have actually been proud of that. It is their pity that he cannot stand.
"Their pity is it from which I flee away and flee to thee. O Zarathustra, protect me, thou my last refuge, thou sole one who divinedst me. Thou hast divined how the man feeleth who killed him. Stay, and if thou wilt go, thou impatient one, go not the way that I came. That way is bad. Art thou angry with me because I have already racked language too long, because I have already counselled thee? But know that it is I, the ugliest man, who have also the largest, heaviest feet. Where I have gone, the way is bad. I tread all paths to death and destruction."
The killing of God, he says, has led only to bad things. Wherever he travels, this manifestation of God's killing, he brings only death and destruction.
"But that thou passedst me by in silence, that thou blushedst, I saw it well. Thereby did I know thee as Zarathustra. Everyone else would have thrown to me his arms, his pity in look and speech, but for that I am not beggar enough. That didst thou divine. For that I am too rich, rich in what is great, frightful, ugliest, most unutterable. Thy shame, O Zarathustra, honoured me."
Again, it is a case of a higher man who can no longer be part of society. He doesn't want pity, but it seems that the killing of God has led to pity being the predominant force in society.
"With difficulty did I get out of the crowd of the pitiful, that I might find the only one who at present teacheth that pity is obtrusive, thyself, O Zarathustra. Whether it be the pity of a god, or whether it be human pity, it is offensive to modesty, and unwillingness to help may be nobler than the virtue that rusheth to do so. That, however, namely pity, is called virtue itself at present by all petty people. They have no reverence for great misfortune, great ugliness, great failure."
He shares Zarathustra's view of pity, how it diminishes the spirit of man. But pity is considered the highest virtue by the godless people that he created with his deed.
"Beyond all these do I look, as a dog looketh over the backs of thronging flocks of sheep. They are petty, good-willed, grey people. As the heron looketh contemptuously at shallow pools, with backward bent head, so do I look at the throng of grey little waves and wills and souls."
The ugliest man does have the power to think for himself. This is how he managed to overcome the idea of God. But now that he killed God, all that is left is the herd, the rabble, those who don't think for themselves. He cannot be part of them, and he lives with the shame of putting them in charge.
Too long have we acknowledged them to be right, those petty people. So we have at last given them power as well, and now do they teach that good is only what petty people call good. And truth is at present what the preacher spake, who himself sprang from them, that singular saint and advocate of the petty people, who testified of himself, I am the truth. That immodest one hath long made the petty people greatly puffed up, he who taught no small error when he taught, I am the truth.
The herd, the petty people which Zarathustra warned against, now have all the power. They impose their values of mediocrity, their slave morality, and there's no alternative. Zarathustra did blame Christianity for putting the petty people in charge, and for turning pity into the highest value, but Christianity at least did demand of people to become better. Now that Christianity is gone, the petty people are left in charge, and pity is the only value. There's nothing that drives humanity to improve itself. It just slowly decays.
Hath an immodest one ever been answered more courteously? Thou, however, O Zarathustra, passedst him by, and saidst, Nay, nay, 3 times nay. Thou warnedst against his error, thou warnedst, the first to do so, against pity. Not every one, not none, but thyself and thy type. Thou art ashamed of the shame of the great sufferer, and verily when thou sayest, From pity there cometh a heavy cloud, take heed, ye men. When thou teachest, all creators are hard, all great love is beyond their pity. O Zarathustra, how well versed dost thou seem to me in weather signs.
The ugliest man realizes that Zarathustra was right all along. He thought everything would be fine if he just kills God, and that humanity will do fine on its own. Now he realizes that he left the pitiful herd in charge, and that they are creating hell on earth. Zarathustra was the only one who warned against the pitiful, and preached that the creators should be the ones in charge, and that these creators should be hard while creating their values, demanding greatness for man, and not taking pity on his weaknesses. He did not heed those words before he killed God, but now he acquiesces to them.
Thou thyself, however, warn thyself also against thy pity, for many are on their way to thee, many suffering, doubting, despairing, drowning, freezing ones. I warn thee also against myself. Thou hast read my best, my worst riddle, myself, and what I have done. I know the axe that felleth thee.
The ugliest man, let's remind ourselves again, is not a real man, but a metaphor, a personification of that side of man that killed God and now realizes the folly of what he had done. This means that is what is happening in the hearts of many contemporary people, and these people will flock to Zarathustra to find a better way. As we, the readers, know, this has already begun. He warns Zarathustra that he will feel pity for them, as he was overcome by a great wave of pity when he saw him, and he must not give in to this pity, or it will destroy him as well.
But he had to die. He looked with eyes which beheld everything. He beheld men's depths and dregs, all his hidden ignominy and ugliness. His pity knew no modesty. He crept into my dirtiest corners. This most prying, over-intrusive, over-pitiful one had to die. He ever beheld me. On such a witness I would have revenge, or not live myself. The God who beheld everything, and also man, that God had to die. Man cannot endure it that such a witness should live.
Now he tries to defend and justify his deed, and here we see what sets him apart from Zarathustra. Zarathustra lost his belief in God because he strove for an existence more truthful, more powerful, more joyful, more beautiful, and more ethical than what the Christian God was offering. The ugliest man did so not because he wanted to become better, but because he wanted to have the freedom to remain wretched, and he couldn't stand God bearing witness to all the wretchedness in his heart and mind and deeds. Therefore, he killed this witness, so he could remain the same. This is why he is so ugly and nondescript. He did not direct his inner powers towards self-surpassing and creating himself as something greater, but kept on wallowing in his wretchedness.
Thus spake the ugliest man. Zarathustra, however, got up, and prepared to go on, for he felt frozen to the very bowels. Thou nondescript, he said, thou warnest me against thy path. As thanks for it, I praise mine to thee. Behold, up thither is the cave of Zarathustra.
The last words of the ugliest man reminded Zarathustra why he despises him. But he is also grateful to him for the warning, and for showing him where atheism should not go. So he invites him to join him in his cave. Maybe he can set him on a better path.
My cave is large and deep, and hath many corners. There findeth he that is most hidden his hiding place, and close beside it there are 100 lurking places and by-places for creeping, fluttering, and hopping creatures. Thou outcast, who hast cast thyself out, thou wilt not live amongst men and men's pity? Well then, do like me. Thus wilt thou learn also from me. Only the doer learneth. And talk first and foremost to mine animals, the proudest animal and the wisest animal. They might well be the right counsellors for us both.
This passage shows us that Zarathustra's cave is a metaphor for his mind. It is large and cavernous, and still has many hidden things to explore. This is why he could stay away from others for so long. He never gets bored of himself, always finding new things.
Thus spake Zarathustra and went his way, more thoughtfully and slowly even than before, for he asked himself many things, and hardly knew what to answer. How poor indeed is man, thought he in his heart, how ugly, how wheezy, how full of hidden shame. They tell me that man loveth himself. Ah, how great must that self-love be, how much contempt is opposed to it.
Zarathustra just came face to face with the manifestation of the wretchedness of man, and it makes him think that man's self-love must be a very powerful emotion if he is able to love himself despite being so wretched. That's actually a good sign. Zarathustra wants man to love himself. If he can become a creature worthy of such love, this powerful emotion will sustain man in a joyful state.
Even this man hath loved himself, as he hath despised himself. A great lover methinketh he is, and a great despiser. No one have I yet found who more thoroughly despised himself. Even that is elevation. Alas, was this, perhaps, the higher man whose cry I heard? I love the great despisers. Man is something that hath to be surpassed.
Another good sign is that this man despises himself. In his first speech about the Superman, Zarathustra noted that self-despising is the first step towards becoming better. He realizes that this makes even the ugliest man a version of the higher man, higher than contemporary society that is full of self-satisfied small people. Maybe this was the man he was looking for all along, the one who emitted the crowd distress. But he isn't sure about that, so he carries on his way.